Hello, YouTubers. This is Level-Headed News, and I'm your host, Brenda. I found a very interesting article that I thought you would all like to hear, so I'm going to bring it to you right now. It's off the allnewspipeline.com, and it's called Revolution Against the Communist Control of MSM and Schools is Happening Now. Americans are snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. Americans are in the midst of snatching victory out of the jaws of defeat as communists who thought they had almost completed their 45 current communist goals within America find themselves scrambling as patriotic Americans stand up and start fighting back against the globalist communist takeover of the press in our nation's schools. In January of 1963, Representative A.S. Herlong Jr. entered the list of 45 current communist goals into the congressional record. Appendix page A34 through A35. The goals themselves credited to W. Cleon Soksin, who added them to his book, The Naked Communist, in 1961, and in the decades since, we have seen communist goal after goal being fulfilled. For those who have never seen the list, it will be presented at the bottom of this article so readers can see how close the communists have gotten to completely taking over America. But I would like to focus on a few of these goals that seemed a faint accompli for the communist, but which we are now witnessing a massive pushback by patriotic Americans and groups united in taking America back. And I will interject here that, of course, this URL is at the bottom of the video there in the about section, so you can pull it up, take a look at it, and peruse it at your discretion. The article goes on to say, goal number 20 states, infiltrate the press, get control of book review assignments, editorial writing, policy-making positions. Over the few decades, we have seen the liberal, progressive, left communists take over some of the biggest names in traditional media. So one would think that goal has been completed, but could not be foreseen when the 45 current communist goals were written or entered into the record by Herlong Jr. is that the internet would provide a way for alternative news media to set up, bypass the traditional media that had been infiltrated by communists and take control of the narrative, making the traditional press, aka the mainstream media, irrelevant. While the election of Donald Trump as president may have highlighted the battle between the MSM and the alternative news media that went toe-to-toe with them and won, the pushback since the election truly has nothing to do with Trump other than the MSM using him as their justification to try to destroy the alternative media. We have seen countless attacks on what the MSM calls fake news, meaning any news the MSM cannot control. The LA Times highlighted a leftist communist fake list of alternative media sites in an attempt to blacklist them. That was followed by the Washington Post, owned by Jeff Bezos, highlighting a shadowy website that accuses 200 publications of spreading Russian propaganda. Make no mistake, these attempts are nothing more than the communists that have infiltrated the MSM completely freaked out over the fact that they could no longer herd the sheep where they wanted them to go, are now trying to dig themselves out of the hole they dug, barely holding on by their fingertips as reports show that MSM revenue is dwindling and print newspapers are dying faster than anyone comprehends and are in terminal decline. The numbers speak for themselves. There is a tweet here that says New York Times print advertising is down 19% in Q3. Jeanette down 15%. Post Media down 21%. McClatchy down 17%. In September 2016, Gallup found that trust in media had hit the lowest levels ever recorded, having dropped 8% points in the last year. And then there is an insert here. It says, Americans' trust in the mass media in general. How much trust and confidence do you have in the mass media, such as newspapers, TV, radio, when it comes to reporting the news fully, accurately, and fairly. A great deal, fair amount, not very much, or not at all. And there is a graph here that it looks like a ski slope headed downward. Republicans who say they have trust in the media has plummeted 14% from 32% a year ago. This is easily the lowest confidence among Republicans in 20 years. Democrats and independents' trust in the media has declined only marginally, with 51% of Democrats compared with 55% last year, and 30% of independents versus 33% last year expressing trust. And then there's another graph. It says trust in the mass media by party, Republicans, Independents, and Democrats. The Republicans went from 41% in 1997 to 14% in 2015. The Independents went from 53% in 1997 to 30% in 2015. And Democrats went from 64% in 1997 to 51% in 2015. Says there's a reason Democrats favor the communist-run mainstream media. Just look at their platforms: larger central government, centralized health care, taking money from rich to give to the poor, the welfare mentality to make the populace more dependent on the government, progressive taxation, etc. One only has to read the manifesto of the Communist Party to compare the Democratic agenda to understand that communists have also taken over the Democratic Party, calling themselves progressive, which is communist goal number 15, which states capture one or both of the political parties in the United States. The communist goal of infiltrating the press may have been fulfilled, but thanks to the World Wide Web, there are more of us in the alternative media than there are of them, and while they are dwindling and dying out, we are surviving and thriving. Goal 17, get control of the schools. Groups fight back with database of communist professors. Goal number 17, the communist goal states, get control of the schools. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. Soften the curriculum. Get control of teachers' associations. Put the party line in textbooks. Over the past months, we have reported extensively on the social justice warrior snowflakes at college campuses across America, but the problem stems from the communist infiltration of school administrators and teachers, creating generation upon generation of communists to send out into the world. The proof of this assertion is found in a recent study, which found that millennials have much higher level of support for communism than older generations. According to the study, just over half of millennials, 55%, believe communism was and still is a problem, compared with 80% of baby boomers and 91% of elderly Americans. Only 37% of millennials have a very unfavorable view of communism, while 57% of the rest of Americans do. A surprising 64% of Americans agreed with the classic Karl Marx statement that underpins Marxist philosophy: from each according to his abilities, to each according to his needs. There is a group that is fighting back against the communists in our schools, as Turning Point USA has launched a website which provides a database called the Professor Watch List, which aggregates a list of names of college professors that advance a radical agenda. This website is an aggregated list of pre-existing news stories that were published by a variety of news organizations throughout the past few years. While we accept tips for new additions on our website, we only publish profiles on incidents that have already been reported somewhere else. TPUSA will continue to fight for free speech and the right for professors to say whatever they wish. However, students, parents, and alumni deserve to know the specific incidents and names of professors that advance a radical agenda in lecture halls. Interestingly enough, a look into the individual articles discussing each professor on the list, we see that while the list is a great count punch against Goal 17, the communist goals, the radical communist agenda highlighted regarding each professor offer further proof that Other goals in the Communist List of 45 are being pushed by these very professors. For example, the Communist Goal number 28 states, eliminate prayer or any phase of religious expression in the schools on the ground that it violates the principle of separation of church and state. From the professor watch list, we note some examples of certain professors pushing that communist goal, such as Dr. Eli Vastigos, has, associate professor in analytical chemistry at East Carolina University. Dr. Habaskovs wrote an email to students saying that they wouldn't be allowed to thank God in their departmental graduation ceremony. He said that too many people had done so in the past and that it is not a religious ceremony, it's purely educational, and there needs to be respect for the diverse student body. Dr. Anitha Butler, a professor at University of Pennsylvania, said God is a white racist. Those are just a couple of examples. The entire list of professors should be read to get a flavor of who is teaching our nation's students and why the younger generations are seeing an increasing number of students graduating out of college and going into the world as communists themselves. Not only have communists infiltrated the schools, but some are openly communist, such as Dr. Benita Aptheker, professor of feminist studies at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Aptheker was raised by a well-known member of the Communist Party and then continued membership into her adult life, including being a leader of leftist groups at her college as a student in the late 1960s. She currently teaches feminist studies and calls her teaching philosophy revolutionary praxis. The goal of this style is to subvert the traditional male-centered teaching mythology and replace it with a woman-centered perspective. The point being, the professor watch list created by the TPUSA is a shove back against the radical agendas being taught to college students across the nation. This watch list should be widely disseminated. An enemy that cannot be seen cannot be fought. So we must make sure parents across America know who is teaching their children, but more importantly, what they are teaching them in order to overcome the infiltration of our schools and to prevent more generations of violent communists from being created. The greatest threat to a free republic is the communist agenda, and as many will see from the list of 45 current communist goals listed below, much of the agenda has been completed, but we also see a silver lining here, as goals that have been completed are being fought back against, overcome by patriots all across America. Communist goals, Congressional Record Appendix, page A34 through A35, January 10th, 1963. Current communist goals, extension of remarks of Honorable A.S. Herlong, Jr. of Florida in the House of Representatives, Thursday, January 10th, 1963. Mr. Herlong, Mr. Speaker, Mrs. Patricia Nordman of DeLand, Florida. This is an ardent, articulate opponent of communism and until recently published the DeLand Courier, which she dedicated to the purpose of alerting the public to dangers of communism in America. At Mrs. Nordman's request, I included the record under unanimous consent and following current communism goals, which she identifies as an excerpt from The Naked Communist by Cleon Soskin, from Naked Communist by Cleon Soskin. Current communist goals. Number 1, U.S. acceptance of coexistence as the only alternative to atomic war. U.S. willingness to capitulate in preference to engaging in atomic war. Number 3, develop the illusion that total disarmament by the United States would be a demonstration of moral strength. Number 4, permit free trade between all nations regardless of communist affiliation and regardless of whether or not items could be used for war. Number 5, extension of long-term goals to Russia and Soviet satellites. Number 6, provide American aid to all nations regardless of communist denomination. Number 7, grant recognition of Red China, admission of Red China to the UN. Number 8, set up Germany as separate states in spite of Khrushchev's promise in 1955 to settle the German question by free elections under the supervision of the UN. Number 9, prolong the conferences to ban atomic tests because the United States has agreed to suspend tests as long as negotiations are in progress. Number 10, allow all Soviet satellites in individual representation in the UN. Number 11, promote the UN as the only hope for mankind. If its charter is rewritten, demand that it be set up as a one world government with its own independent armed forces. Some communist leaders believe the world can be taken over as easily by the UN as by Moscow. Sometimes these two centers compete with each other, as they are now doing in the Congo. Number 12, resist any attempt to outlaw the Communist Party. Number 13, do away with all loyalty oaths. Number 14, continue giving Russia access to the U.S. Patent Office. Number 15, capture one or both of the political parties in the United States. Number 16, use technical decisions of the courts to weaken basic American institutions by claiming that their activities violate civil rights. Number 17, get control of the schools. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. Soften the curriculum. Get control of teachers' associations. Put the party line in textbooks. Number 18, gain control of all student newspapers. Use student riots to foment public protests against programs or organizations which are under communist attack. Number 20, infiltrate the press. Get control of book review assignments, editorial writing, policymaking positions. Number 21, gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. Number 22, continue discrediting American culture by degrading all forms of artistic expression. An American communist cell was told to eliminate all good sculpture from parks and buildings, substitute shapeless, awkward, and meaningless forms. Number 23, control art critics and directors of art museums. Our plan is to promote ugliness, repulsiveness, meaningless art. 24, eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and free press. Number 25, break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, and TV. Number 26, morality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. Number 27, infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with social religion. Discredit the Bible and emphasize the need for intellectual maturity, which does not need a religious crutch. Number 28, eliminate prayer or any phase of religious expression in the schools on the grounds that it violates the principle of separation of church and state. Number 29, discredit the American Constitution by calling it inadequate, old-fashioned, out of step with modern needs, the hindrance to cooperation between nations on a worldwide basis. Number 30, discredit the American founding fathers, present them as selfish aristocrats who had no concern for the common man. Number 31, belittle all forms of American culture and discourage the teaching of American history on the grounds that it was only a minor part of the big picture. Give more emphasis to Russian history since the communists took over. 32, support any socialist movement to give centralized control over any part of the culture, education, social agencies, welfare programs, mental health clinics, etc. 33, eliminate all laws or procedures which interfere with the operation of the communist apparatus. 34, eliminate the House Committee on UN American Activities. 35, discredit and eventually dismantle the FBI. 36, infiltrate and gain control of more unions. 37, Infiltrate and gain control of big business. 38. Transfer some of the powers of arrest from the police to social agencies. Treat all behavioral problems as psychiatric disorders which no one but psychiatrists can understand or treat. 38. Dominate the psychiatric profession and use mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals. Number 40. Discredit the family as an institution. Encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. 41. Emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of parents. Attribute prejudices, mental blocks, and retarding of children to suppressive influence of parents. 42. Create the impression that violence and insurrection are legitimate aspects of the American tradition, that students and special interest groups should rise up and use united force to solve economic, political, or social problems. 43. Overthrow all colonial governments before native populations are ready for self-government. 44. Internationalize the Panama Canal. Number 45. Repeal the Conley Reservation so the United States cannot prevent the World Court from seizing jurisdiction over domestic problems. Give the World Court jurisdiction over nations and individuals alike. I thought you might enjoy that article. There's some good discussion at the bottom of it if you want to pull it up and take a look at what other folks are saying about it in the comment section on it. So there you have that. If you enjoyed it, please give the video a thumbs up and share it around.